All right. Hi, everybody. Come on in. Welcome back to the Holler Hour. Tuesdays, Thursdays, we're here with the Holler Army. That's you guys. This is the Holler Hour. So if you have anything to holler about, today is your day to message us. If you want the link to jump in with us, we'd love to hear from you. tnholler.com is where you can subscribe and support all the various hollers all throughout the state, trying to grow. We're also reaching out to people all across the state right now to see if anybody wants us to jump in and talk about the holler at your group. So if you have a group of people that you're in, a member of, and you want us to come and talk to them about what the holler is up to, so we can sort of give them the lay of the land and how everybody can help, because you all are the holler too. Definitely just let us know. We'd love to do that. So we're starting to make more of a push to do that. We're also going to have a chairs race forum next week on the 9th and 10th at 7 p.m. We're splitting it into two groups. There's going to be 9 so far people vying for the Tennessee Democratic Party chair position. And we have a bunch of questions we're going to ask them. If you have questions you want to ask them, definitely reach out and let us know. We're looking forward to that. We've had a lot of people tell us that they're looking forward to that. So we've had a lot of good questions from you guys too. So again, this is your time, Holler Hour. If you have anything you want to kvetch about, to use a, I guess, Yiddish phrase that my family uses.
There you go.
Definitely, this is the time. Cassie, how you doing?
Doing pretty well. I was just talking about how it just feels like Groundhog Day once again, but that's all right. It's all right. All things considered, it's okay. How are you doing?
Day.
Yeah,
I'm doing well. I also wanted to first point out that we need people's help pressuring Mike Sparks,
oh my God,
who posted this message on his Facebook page saying essentially that he challenges any journalist to a debate about race and John DeBerry and the Me Too movement. And so I messaged him and I said, "Hey, Rep Sparks, I run the Tennessee Holler. I'd love to take you up on your offer to debate any journalist about these issues. Happy to have that conversation." Rep Sparks is somebody who refuses to acknowledge that the Civil War was fought over slavery. So love to have him on the Holler. We always say we would love to have. We're trying to have people on the Holler that don't agree with us, but nobody wants to come on here.
Yeah,
we're not that scary, are we?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm that scary. I don't look in the mirror. I'm not too scared of myself, maybe just a little bit, but that's mostly in the mornings. But yeah, I mean, I also just love
you, Cassie.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I love that Rep Sparks thinks that he's like the perfect spokesperson for these issues as well. It's just like hilarious that he writes this essay on Facebook, boomer style, and like just puts it out there as like, I would be the perfect person to like go against all, I would love to hear him articulate his position. Exactly. I would love to hear him.
Person to argue with about race.
And me too.
Defends the KKK Grand Wizard bust without apparently having, he said, I haven't studied it when I asked him about whether or not the Civil War was fought over slavery. The guy is kind of a disaster. Alan says, was that a Facebook post or a novel? That's a good question.
I don't think any publisher would take him up on it.
Yes. But we had it sent to us and we were like, you know what? We're ready for you. So Rep Sparks, I'm looking at you, ready to talk to you anytime. I'll be gentle. Come on, let's have a conversation about race, sex, DeBerry, the Me Too movement, anything else you want to talk about, Rep Sparks. This is your safe place on the Holler. We're ready for you. So please take us up on that. I beg you to take us up on that. Meanwhile, Republicans seem to be so busy trying to do everything they can to convince people not to vote in Georgia. This has become their thing. Don't vote in Georgia. Don't vote in this rigged election. And really, it's starting to freak out their own people. We have this guy, Lynn Wood, who's a lawyer in Georgia, getting up on stage saying, don't bother voting for it. It's a rigged election. And now Trump staffers have now started to be like, who wants Republicans not to vote? Democrats. So they're starting to treat Lynn Wood like he's some sort of Democrat plant. And you know what? I feel like if he is, it's the smartest thing the Democrats have ever done by a million miles.
They're finally starting to play dirty. I mean,
this is what Republicans would do. Let's watch
exactly.
Lynn Wood.
This is so good.
Lynn Wood in Georgia.
Where's Kelly Loeffler here? Where's David Perdue? He ought to be standing right here. Those who want your vote, then they ought to tell you what we're telling Brian Kemp. Get a special session of the legislature now. Right. Do not be fooled twice. This is Georgia. We ain't dumb.
Yeah, they want Brian Kemp. So Brian Kemp is like completely pro-Trump. Basically stole the election from Stacey Abrams last time by purging hundreds of thousands of votes. Now they're treating him like he is some like raging liberal, and they're saying they need a special session because they're not dumb in Georgia, even as they buy this grift, which we'll show you in a second how big a grift this is. But let's keep going.
We're not going to go vote on January 5th in another machine made by China.
Yeah.
Another machine made by China.
Again.
Yeah.
If Kelly Loeffler wants your vote, if David Perdue wants your vote, they've got to earn it.
Yeah.
You know, I agree with earning votes.
They've got to demand publicly, repeatedly, consistently. Brian Kemp, call a special session of the Georgia legislature. And
if they do not do it, we will not vote. I mean, you know what? Lynn Wood is on to something there, folks. Like, let's definitely sit this one out, Georgia.
Like, yeah, I mean, why would you want to vote in this upcoming election?
Yeah, it's rigged. But then the best part is watching Republicans turn around and say, no, it's not rigged. It's not rigged.
So hilarious.
Definitely go vote.
It's so funny. It's so funny, like how they create these, like they've created this monster, and they do this every so often, right? Yeah. It like just gets worse every time, where they create these monsters that get completely out of their control, and it just comes back and bites them in the ass.
That's exactly what Trumpism is. And here's Newt Gingrich, Lynn Wood, and Sidney Powell are totally destructive. Every Georgia conservative who cares about America must vote in the runoff. Their don't vote strategy will cripple America. This is between TV hits where Gingrich is on Fox saying how rigged the election was, and how the Dominion machines were rigged and fraudulent, and how it was stolen. But no, please go vote, folks.
You can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah,
dude.
like what needle are they trying to thread here? It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's a tiny little thread needle right there. Like I don't think you can thread that one. It's not going to work.
It's a tiny window. It's kind of amazing to watch. You could see this coming a mile away though. Like, what did they think the net result was going to be of creating this monster? Like, you knew that eventually, the risk they were taking was that people were going to say, all right, well, I'm not going to show up anyway. In the meantime, as this was happening in Michigan, this was one of the star witnesses for Trump doing her thing.
The poll book is completely off. Completely off.
Off by 30,000?
I'd say that poll book is off by over 100,000.
She's straight up SNL character come to life. Victoria Jackson, like the way
is that Kate McKinnon?
It's a Kate McKinnon on Weekend Update is who she is. Like, and she adjusts the mic. Like, oh boy, here I'm going to say my thing right now. I'm so sure about this that I'm going to adjust the mic to make sure it's pointed right at my mouth as I say this absolutely garbage thing that I'm about to say. I mean, I honestly can't get enough of this woman.
She's hilarious.
Poll book, why don't you look at the registered voters on there?
Oh yeah.
How many registered voters are on there?
Like what?
Do you even know the answer to that?
No, I guess I'm trying to get to the bottom of this here.
This guy's a Republican, by the way.
So my question then is, if
he's like trying to help her get to some sort of point.
Yes.
This guy's a Republican. He's like on her side. He's trying to coax her into saying something coherent. And she's just lashing. She thinks she's got it,
Yes. How many?
Yep.
What about?
Like Giuliani's reaching over, like, no, stop. Like, he wants her to stop, but she doesn't even know.
When he's telling you to stop, like, come on, you've got
turnout rate 120%.
He's like, no, you've gone too far.
He's like, you're making me look bad. Stop it.
Right.
You're making
honestly,
me.
Rudy at this point should just be going with it. Like,
I know.
Who is he trying to?
In.
Like, Rudy, you're off the deep end already. Like, why rein anyone in at this point?
Let's let Representative Johnson ask his question.
So the poll book number.
And by the way, in Tennessee, it costs, I think, like $60,000 a day to have these people in session. So this is wasting taxpayer money.
Yeah,
having these people in session. Like, this is not free. These people are all getting paid to do this stuff.
Yeah.
There's two things that could happen here. either the poll book number, it bounced from column.
He's like trying so hard to make sense.
Option
Forget
number
him. Let's hear from her more.
Talk about the needle again. Like you just can't do it.
Votes. So
I know what I saw.
I know what I saw.
I know what I saw.
My favorite is the
and I
affidavit.
signed something saying that if I'm wrong, I can go to prison. Did you?
I mean, I'll tell you what's really taking a hit in this day and age is affidavits.
Yes.
The affidavit brand is really in the toilet. Like,
don't buy stock
like,
in affidavits.
No, affidavits, like we all know now that affidavits don't mean diddly shit. Like it doesn't mean anything. I mean, an affidavit is like
when you're this person, it doesn't mean anything. When you're coming from a position of privilege, it means nothing.
It's right, exactly. Like if you were a poor person of color signing something and then they proved you were wrong, they'd probably go throw you in jail for 5 years. But for a white blonde woman in Michigan, I'll sign whatever you put in front of me. Exactly. The word probably says, I think this, right? You just say, I think this. Prove that I don't think it. Like, there's no court case to be made out of that. No, and all of these affidavits and all of these court cases that Kayleigh McEnany has been waving around, these stacks of paper, they're not worth the paper they're written on. And so never trust an affidavit. That's number
if
number
that's all
one.
They've got, then they've got nothing.
Then they've got nothing.
She does look like someone that would
Victoria Jackson.
What?
Sorry, I thought you said.
I was gonna say, I maybe, yeah.
Are you too young for Victoria Jackson?
I could see that.
Are you too young for that? Do you know who she is?
I've seen pictures of her. I've never seen.
Okay, so Victoria Jackson is like she plays that character. She used to play that character on SNL.
So she acts like that too.
She was on SNL as that person, but then after SNL, she wasn't on for very long. She became like completely right wing nut. And so, like, that's who she is now. That's who she is. That person.
Oh my God, that's
it's so amazing to see. And then I know you wanted to play this because this is the hard news that we need.
This is the hard hitting stuff, guys.
Yeah, this is really important that everybody pay attention to this because if we didn't cover this, I don't know how we could call ourselves journalists. This is what Rudy Giuliani had to say.
The answer that I gave you is they didn't bother to interview a single witness. Just like you, they don't.
You heard that, folks.
Can you rewind that?
I'm definitely going to rewind that. Just listen close here.
The answer. Point of order. The answer that I gave you is they didn't bother to interview a single witness.
This is a journalist tweeted this out.
Oh, like this is not. Yeah, this is real. This really happened.
Totally not fake. Like a Huffington Post journalist tweeted this out. Like this is not. We did not edit this here at the Holler.
No, Rudy Giuliani farted as he was speaking, and it's real. It was posted by real journalists. My favorite is that he actually pauses to make it happen.
Yes.
Like if you listen, he gives it a little pause.
The answer that I gave you is they didn't bother to interview a single witness.
A single witness. I mean, it really fits what he's saying too.
Like it's just like.
And look at the woman next to him. She's like, yeah, I heard you.
That validates it even more. Like she's looking at him, and you're like, oh yeah, this shit's real. Like
she's like, how microphones work. Like it can pick up all the sounds that you're making, Rudy. You understand that, right?
It's just so comical. It's so comical at this point. Like it's honestly like if you wrote this in a script, the person would be like, it's just like this is too much, but it's real life.
Think about the month or so, probably way more that Rudy Giuliani has had from getting tricked by Borat into like playing with himself in front of a reporter to having the hair dye dripping down his face at a press conference to scheduling a press conference at 4 Seasons Total Landscaping to now ripping a fart on a microphone the guy is an absolute mess. I feel for his daughter who seems to be like a reasonable person. Let's just watch it one more time.
The answer that I gave you is they didn't bother to interview a single witness. Just like you, they don't want to know the truth. Well, you probably know the truth.
Yeah, we do know the truth, Rudy. The truth is you just ripped a hot fart on a microphone and that is how you will be remembered.
It's
so
just
good.
it's so hilarious. I'm excited for like a biopic of him. Like we need to get like a really good comedian to like play Rudy Giuliani in like the best comedy of the decade, because
Isn't
there's
Kate
so much
McKinnon playing him
material.
too? She's playing everybody. She's amazing.
Yeah,
She plays
just have her do it. Like it's that would be great. And
Here's something I didn't know. Victoria
What?
Jackson lives in Williamson County. Did not know
for
that.
real?
That's amazing. Maybe we should track her down and have her on.
We got to get her on the Holler.
Yeah, that would be
for
fun.
Sure.
Oh,
and
so
it's so
good.
funny too, because that star witness, like she does look like she'd be fun to party with.
She was ready
in like an alternate universe where it's like you want to hang out with someone like that, but it's like, okay,
like she was there for the paycheck.
She looks like she would be like Queen Broadway or something.
My
like that.
goodness. All right, here's one more clip. This is a brief one. You know, they're constantly telling us how voter fraud is real and the liberal Dems are the ones that are doing it. Well, here is a Republican attorney in Florida literally telling people in a county party meeting in Florida to go move to Georgia and register to vote in this Senate election.
Whatever it takes. And if that means changing your address for the next 2 months, so be it. I'm doing it.
He says, I'm doing it.
I'm moving to Georgia.
He has later said that he is joking, but that ain't a joke.
He sounds like he's joking, right?
Yeah, and he's an attorney. So I find it hard to believe attorneys would joke about committing felonies. This guy deserves to be investigated. You know, there's a black woman in Texas in prison for accidentally voting when she was on parole. Like, this is telling people to go commit felonies and voter fraud, and zero Republicans have said anything about this guy.
Of course not. I mean, that's exactly the whole thing. Like it's just use whatever you can to try to do voter suppression against people that will not vote for Republicans. But like but when it comes to this, like it's totally fine. It's just all about power. It's ridiculous. It's so transparent, and they get away with it.
It's un-American. Like, how do you call yourselves patriots when you're willing to do all of this to overthrow the will of the people because you didn't get your way? Like, this is not American. Like, you've stopped being Americans. You are doing the bidding of our enemies. This is exactly what our enemies want, is to kick dirt on the democratic process, to show that democracy doesn't work. You know, this flies in the face of everything the forefathers stood for. And it's absolutely the opposite of patriotism. I don't understand. I know that we would not be doing this if the roles were reversed. And it's hard to understand how to get through to them about this, because it's so ugly. It's so pro autocracy. You've got Mike Flynn literally putting out a statement saying that Trump should declare martial law, have a new election overseen by the military. Like, what are we talking about? This guy was a general. He just got pardoned. I mean, these are un-American people. I don't care if they were born in America. This is un-American, and it's a disgrace. It's far more un-American than anything Colin Kaepernick ever did.
Oh, it's not. That's not even a comparison, for sure.
Right.
It's such a joke that they even would, that was ever even a talking point.
Right.
Right.
I guess I'm misspeaking about that. But
no,
what I'm trying to say to say that Colin Kaepernick is un-American for kneeling during the anthem, which is actually patriotic because he wants this country to be better. The people who are complaining about that want to overthrow the will of the people and have a new election under martial law. Like, there's just no consistency to anything these people are saying other than raw ambition and a hunger for power at the expense of everything that we hold dear. It's truly disgusting.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it just like hopefully shows people that is what's behind the curtain. It's just like that all of this rhetoric, these rhetorical lines, they don't mean anything. It's all about power. It's all about manipulating people with this rhetoric in order to gain more power. That's all that it is. And that's all that it's ever been. And so I just really hope that at least we get that out of this, where we get people to realize that that this sort of rhetoric is that's all that it's serving, and that it's not, any sort of actual meaningful value in terms of, our nation or just people in general.
Well, there are Republicans who have been speaking out. I mean, it took a while, but here's one in Georgia. He is like the voting the election manager, I believe he is. His name's Gabriel Sterling, and he came with the thunder this week.
Yeah.
He stormed up there, ripped off his mask.
Good afternoon. My name is Gabriel Sterling.
My favorite part about this whole thing is the sign language guy captures the anger.
I was thinking the same thing when I first watched this.
Today.
Yeah, he brings it too.
At the beginning of this, I'm going to do my best to keep it together.
Yeah.
Because it has all gone too far.
I love the staccato for effect. It's so true.
All of it. Joe DeGenevieve today asked for Chris Krebs, a patriot who ran CISA, to be shot.
That's a Trump lawyer.
A 20-something tech in Gwinnett County today has death threats and a noose without saying he should be hung for treason because he was transferring a report on batches from an EMS to a county computer so he could read it. It has to stop.
I mean, that's some righteous anger right there.
He's pissed.
And
he's pissed.
Completely well earned and deserved. And that's the right tone. That's the tone that everybody should be striking. If you're not that angry about what's going on, something's very wrong.
Yeah.
And his boss, Raffensperger, was also threatened. They're saying awful things to his wife. Raffensperger was a Trump voter, Trump supporter. These people all voted for Trump. I mean, these are not Democrats. And yes, Democrats are enjoying the infighting, but we're not enjoying what this is doing to the country.
Yeah, we're not enjoying the anti-democratic nature of it. And I think, and the push towards, that's the dangerous, the especially dangerous segment of the Republican Party towards authoritarianism. That's extremely dangerous. And I think that, we talk about this a lot, but the groundwork that could lay for the future is really dangerous. And the one, that guy's righteous anger is totally valid and totally justified. And I'm glad that he said what he did. And it was very powerful, the way that he delivered what he was saying, his message. The one thing, and later on in the video where he kind of appeals to Trump, I wish that he hadn't necessarily just appealed to Trump, because it's like Trump isn't going to do anything differently. There's not going to change what he's doing. No, there's no reason to appeal to Trump at this point. Right. Appeal to other Republican leaders who are still enabling this bullshit. Appeal to Mitch McConnell. Appeal to high profile senators that are actually still playing along with this game. Appeal to people that could actually add more legitimacy to this process.
I don't know if they're any more capable of feeling shame and remorse.
I agree.
I think they all are sort of the shameless people who are all in it for things like the money. This was from Axios. The president has raised $170 million for his election defense fund and political operation, out of which $125 million goes to a PAC he set up, Save America, that he can use for travel and other expenses. So $125 million that he has raised can go basically right into his pocket. And we've all seen how these PAC expenses can be, sprinkled all over the place to whatever they want. They can go spend it on meals, champagne, whatever, as long as they claim it was a campaign expense. And, Trump stood in his office this week and gave another speech, and he was actually forthcoming. He held up this sign that said, "It's a grift." No, I'm just kidding. He didn't actually hold that up, but it is a grift.
I mean, he could probably do that and get away with it, and
he probably could,
and his supporters would still donate to him.
That's a good point. He probably could just be open about it and say that. And
it's already so transparent. It's like, how much more do you need? I don't know. Do you need that sign? Just to his supporters, do you need that?
Right.
Really?
Well, and in the meantime, everybody should be asked where they stand on this stuff. If you're out there and you have the email of your reps, make sure to ask them. The Washington Post is saying they're going to be asking every Republican member of Congress who won the election, do you support Trump's efforts to claim victory? If Biden wins, will you accept him as the president? They should all be asked those questions, especially here in Tennessee at every level, state house, state senate. Ask your county commissioners, get everybody on record, because when this is over, and it will be over, people need to know how many of these people were willing to throw America and democracy under the bus. And, so far we've seen that it's quite a few of them. It's sad. It's not necessarily unsurprising. You've even got Trump fighting with Barr because Barr came out and said there was no evidence of systemic fraud. And of course, Trump lost his mind over that. So,
again, when you lose Barr, like he was such a crucial part of this process too. If this had all been closer, like Barr would have played a crucial part of the process in terms of like, stealing the election for Trump if Biden had won by slimmer margins. Right. So the other obviously big thing that's going on here is the hospitalizations are spiking. This was a Phil Williams tweet about 1,000 Tennesseans in hospitals, only 164 ICU beds available statewide. We've started to get messages from teachers. This email came to us from a Rutherford County teacher anonymously saying the situation is threatening learning. Teachers are crumbling. Please take care of us. That's available on our social media feeds. If you guys could share that. Obviously, it's a voice that we want to lift up. We want to try to lift up the stories of these teachers. And if you know anybody else who has a story that wants it lifted up, definitely our inbox is always open. This is what the Holler is here for. The Holler is you guys. And so we appreciate that message coming to us. And, we hope it helped. It got shared a lot on Twitter and Facebook, especially in Rutherford County on the Borough Holler. So, it's really good to hear from people when we hope that we can help in that way. Yes, Barr knows where the body buried. Absolutely. Barr will write a book eventually. He'll probably make himself look like a hero, and that's what's going to happen. This was another teacher at Secret Teacher TN or T saying, I'd like a Knox school super or a board member to step up and sub right now if school is the safest place for kids, which is what they keep saying. That's such a great point. They do keep saying that. And meanwhile, we've had teachers die in Tennessee. We've got teachers getting sick. My wife works in the school system. It's a mess. She actually is in that same school system that we got a message from. And so, I've seen it up close and personal. And then you've got people going on social media saying, just had a large group over to lunch. We hugged and ate and talked and put the world to rights. And this nurse, who I believe may be a Tennessee nurse, not sure, said, just held a person's hand as they died alone without their family or loved ones by their side. Glad you enjoyed your meal. Those are the people that you're sticking your finger up to when you do these things. And, it's the healthcare workers that have no choice. You can say, oh, it's my choice, but it's not their choice. They have to take care of you. And those are the people whose lives you're taking into your hands when you do these things, these selfish things. Not wearing a mask is not about freedom. It's about selfishness and a lack of concern for other people. Yeah, it's definitely, it's incredibly selfish. And it also just speaks to the lack of leadership that we've had from top to bottom, starting from Trump all the way down to, Bill Lee and going down from there. I mean, some of I don't want to, that's not broad strokes because some mayors are doing what they can here in Tennessee, with what they've got. But, we've talked about this before. Statewide mask mandates are much more effective than countywide ones. And then just from the federal government, if we were actually paying people to get through this crisis, if we were sending people checks, for their personal lives and for their businesses, we wouldn't be having this problem. And you wouldn't have like just to make this point also, like you wouldn't have Trump supporters acting this way. Like there would be like a fringe minority of people that would maybe like be against wearing masks. But if he was actually showing leadership on this, which of course I don't expect it at this point, but I just really want to hammer that home that's like, and then if you had Bill Lee and other governors, like the comparison between South Dakota and Vermont that we showed the other day, like where you have
leadership matters.
Exactly. It really matters.
So it matters. It matters on everything. It matters on healthcare. It matters on, wages. It matters on everything. It matters on unions. Like leadership matters. Yeah. To act like leadership doesn't matter is to shirk your responsibility. So if what you're doing is showing that you're not wearing a mask, minimizing it, saying it's like the flu, people are following that lead. And that's why we have the worst outbreak in the world. And it is the worst outbreak in the world. Our economic recovery is not what they want us to believe it is. It hit jobs extremely hard right away. And yes, there's been a bounce back, but we're still not even to the bottom of the Great Recession, which they constantly were talking about how the Great Recession was a slow recovery and, finding ways to make Obama look bad. Well, we still haven't gotten back to the bottom of the Great Recession.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is going to be a long road, and we're in for a long winter too. I think that people just, we need to have solidarity with each other, with everybody that's affected by this. Like, just got to look out for each other in whatever ways we can. If you have a mutual aid network in your area, if there's, whatever you can do to like help that we all can do to help support each other, I think is what we need to be doing, because it's not going to come from the top, at least where we are. Like, it's not going to come from Bill Lee. It's not going to come for Trump. That's for sure. And, Biden's going to have a really hard time when he gets into office with this mess. So it's, we've just got to look out for each other.
Well, I completely agree. It's just sad, frankly, that it's gone this far. And, we've just had our worst month here in Tennessee. Something like 2,500 people are dying a day right now from this disease. And, we're starting to feel it around us. I mean, my kid's home being quarantined, feel it acutely around here. A couple other things. I know you wanted to mention what was going on in India. Just before we get to that, I just want to mention that the UN removed cannabis from a list of the most dangerous substances. And the United States still hasn't done that. So the United States need to do that next. And then maybe that will pave the way for some progress here in Tennessee, where we still have to move the needle, partly because we don't allow ballot initiatives here in Tennessee. I guarantee you, if there was a ballot initiative statewide for medicinal marijuana, it would pass with flying colors.
Yes.
But they don't allow ballot initiatives here in Tennessee, even though in Nashville, the city, they allow ballot initiatives, and Republicans love to try to push things as ballot initiatives on there. So when it's convenient, they won't hear the people. It's inconvenient, they don't. Medicaid expansion, marijuana, these things are passing ballot initiatives throughout the country. The same thing would happen here if the will of the people was given a chance to be heard. But Republicans don't seem to really care about listening to them.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that it's something that, like, I mean, that issue would pass with flying colors. Like, we could probably pass legalizing and decriminalizing marijuana if we wanted to.
Republicans voters would want that. I mean,
if that was a voter initiative, if it was a nationwide issue, like I have no doubt that it would pass, just based off of polling and in the history of where it's passed already. So I mean, I'm always, and I know you are too, like, we're at the Holler, we're just in favor of democracy wherever you could get it. Like, more power to the hands of the people. Ballot initiatives are a really great way of doing that. And that's something that they're, as you said, afraid of doing here because they don't want issues like that to pass.
Well, I would like to see a Democrat in the state house or state senate carry a bill to put ballot initiatives back, to have ballot initiatives, because, like, how can you vote against that?
And get them on record.
You get what I'm saying. Get them on record.
Yeah.
How can you possibly be against ballot initiatives and say that you actually care about what the people have to say? Same thing with fair districting. Like, there's only one answer when you get asked about, like, supporting independent commissions for fair districting and doing away with gerrymandering. Like, the answer is yes. Like, if you're against that, then you don't care about what the people have to say, and you prefer a system where politicians pick the voters as opposed to voters picking the people. These are no-brainer issues that you just have to say yes to, and that's why it's so hard to actually get them to become a topic. So, I would like to see Democrats push that. Republicans aren't going to. But on the marijuana thing, there actually are Republican legislators who want to see that happen. And so definitely make sure that you find out if your and we'll help figure this out too, who is against that. Janice Bowling. I mean, I'm no fan of Janice Bowling.
Yeah.
She has a weed bill, and it's important to have the right weed bill, because otherwise you end up legalizing it and having all the benefits go into the hands of a few. Like, we need to make sure it's the right kind of weed bill where the right people are benefiting, especially the people who have been hurt by these issues, by criminalization for so long. Ballot issues are dangerous. Ballot issues are dangerously misleading. Sure, they can be, but at the same time, they can also move in the right direction. And, if anything can be dangerously misleading, anything can be misused, but I don't think that's a reason not to have them.
I don't think that there's a whole lot of substance to that. I'm personally, like, I think that ballot initiatives can be a really powerful, good thing. And it's more power in the hands of the people. You can skirt around what your representatives are doing in the state legislature.
What he's saying is, like for instance, with this latest push by the Koch brothers, Americans for Prosperity, to do
Oh,
away
gotcha.
with the property tax initiative, the way it was written was very
Mm,
misleading. And like, so they would go around and say, are you for, basically they were trying to people, you can be for tax increase. And they'd be like,
gotcha.
yeah, I'm not for a tax increase, but they don't tell you that basically that means that you're having to fire teachers and, you know, cut the fire department, cut police. So the way it's written matters.
Sure.
And
I agree with that.
people can be misled in that process. But again, I don't think that's a reason not to have these things. Let's just make sure when we have them, it's buttoned up so that it is clear. And I actually think what that process showed us was that the process is buttoned up, because at the end of the day, that got thrown out because it was misleading.
Mhm.
So, you know, I think the process worked in Nashville, and we should have something similar on a statewide level, because there's too many statewide issues that could move forward if we didn't have to rely so much on, you know, the will of Cameron Sexton and Jack Johnson.
Yeah, we're going to be waiting a while for that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree. Just about the right type of weed bill as well. I know we had Representative John Ray Clemens on here a little while back, and he's all in favor of, you know, decriminalizing and, you know, like doing, you know, getting a weed bill passed here in Tennessee. But there was one that I think, was it Dickerson that had put forward that was like
that
very
was the one he was
pro-corporate.
complaining about. Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
where it's like, of course, like we need to pass the right kind of one where it's like the money is going to go back to where it goes to the people in the most efficient ways and goes to support. You know, I know Colorado does education. We could do something like that here. It could go to a variety of. I mean, there's so many issues here that need that need better funding, where we could use some of those profits. You know,
right?
So.
It's a money issue. Like, and we're going to get to the bottom of what those numbers are, but looking at states that have done it, especially in the South, like we're losing millions and millions of dollars not having passed this. Same way we're losing $1 billion a year not expanding Medicaid. So I think people need to understand that, and there needs to be a better job of selling that. And so, you know, we're going to keep talking about this issue here because it's really important. And I do think it's one that could help move the needle progressively in Tennessee. Just a couple of things left. The last thing I want to talk about is really going to piss us off. So, you know, maybe before we get to that,
you want to save it for the end?
Yeah, I'm going to save it for the end.
Okay.
Also, just thank you to the people who are still watching. You guys are like, you know, our hardcore crew. We really appreciate it. Definitely spread the word about the show if you can, and feel free to jump in and holler at us if you have anything to say, but we do appreciate you guys. Cassie, what's the thing that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, so I wanted to talk. This is just not getting a whole lot of media coverage, and so I really wanted to highlight that here, and we'll probably post about it some more. But in case you haven't heard, in India right now, there's a 250 million people. Like there are 250 million people who are striking countrywide. It's arguably the largest in history, which is insane. Like I mean, the population of India is what, like 1 billion people, and they're 250. That's a fifth of the country that is striking. That's a monumental amount of people. Like I just can't even fathom it almost. It's incredible. And they're farmers and workers. It started as a worker strike. The farmers have joined, and they're protesting Modi's pro-corporate far-right agenda that has really hurt them during this time. And it's like during coronavirus, it's just been completely exacerbated. So they've got this, you know, 12-point charter. Some of the highlights of that are a withdrawal from a series of laws that were recently passed by Modi that repeal key labor and farm price protections. They're protesting a rollback they want a rollback, in the recent disinvestment policies in major government-owned enterprises. It's all basically like, you know, protesting like pro-corporate stuff that like hurts everyday people essentially.
Right.
And then,
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say, you know, unions versus unions are representative of power in the people's hands. There's a reason that Republicans, especially here in Tennessee, are so against them. And, you know, I know that there are complaints about unions sometimes from people on the left about the way that they work, blah, blah. And I'm not trying to like say that anything is perfect, but I'm a union member, big believer in them. Unions have given us so much. And, you know, if a politician is anti-union and trying to dismantle unions, that tells you all you need to know about them.
I totally agree. I mean, I mean, it's like just on its face, like it's more power in the hands of the people. Like having a militant, just labor unions, you know, like really like strong labor. It's just the same thing just happened in Bolivia, where they have like 40%, you know, union membership or something like that in Bolivia. And they were you know, it's like, it if you have that type of organization within the people, then you're able to like get more of what you want.
The numbers are very clear on this. Unions and the
Yeah.
middle class go hand in hand. Middle class has been declining for 40 years, and so has union membership because of the attacks on unions. Back when unions were at their strongest, so was the middle class. This is not, it's not, the graphs are like neck and neck exactly together on this. And so to support you is to support class listed long, overtime, weekends, child labor laws, worker protection. The list goes on and on and on of the things that unions have given us in this country. And so, you know, the path forward has to be labor centric. You look at what Governor Lee just did. His economic recovery group here in Tennessee had zero workers, zero worker reps on it. You know, they're telling us who they are. You know, they are, and they say, oh, you know, their anti-union laws are for freedom, like freedom not to be in a union. No, they're freedom to exploit workers. That's what right to work really means, the right to exploit workers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, as you said, they just completely go hand in hand. It's more power away from like undemocratic, like a corporation. You know, you can have your opinions about, corporations, whatever business in this country. Fine. They are. Oh, hey, that's awesome, Angel.
Wait a minute. I wonder if that's George the postman.
Wait. Oh,
George came over donning his Tennessee Holler hat. The postman I met yesterday, his name was George, and I gave him a hat. I wonder if that's him. I would love that.
No way.
No. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
No. That's amazing. We gotta get George in here. Anyway, I was just saying that that having that sort of intersectionality to it, and people, you know, there's some people that I've heard on the left also like talk about how, you know, oh, like talking too much about labor class, yada yada yada. That's like it's like when people talk about the working class, and this is a real thing. Like sometimes when people talk about the working class or the working man, they're thinking of like some white guy in wherever. Like the working class in this country, we have a smaller and smaller middle class because of like, you know, taking away labor rights over years and years and years and weakening unions.
That's so cool. Sorry.
Oh, that is so cool.
It's George the postman. Please tell him I say hi.
We definitely got to get George in here.
Yeah.
But anyway, it just, you know, I just lost my train of thought. But
sorry about that. That's my fault.
No, that's okay. It's okay.
You were saying the working class is
it's smaller and smaller. Yeah, exactly. It's like the working class is largely non-white.
Exactly. Largely non-white. It's multiracial. You know, it's very inclusive. Unions are very inclusive. It's very pro-immigration. Like unions, you know, centering unions is the way forward in a lot of ways. And yes, Reagan did start the attack on unions. He also started the shift of the tax burden from it used to be like something like 2/3 corporate taxes, 1/3 payroll taxes. Over time, that has now flipped to the point where now 2/3 of tax revenue in this country comes from workers, only 1/3 from corporations. That is a direct assault on spending power. Meanwhile, productivity has gone up. Wages have not kept up with it. So, you know, workers in this country have been getting the shaft. And the only way to fix that is to elect people who side with workers. And that's really a fundamental divide that needs to be highlighted a lot more than it is. And you know, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Finish your thought if you have.
I was just going to say, I don't think necessarily Democrats do a great job of doing that all the time.
Yeah.
Part of that is because, you know, there are a bunch of Democrats that are kind of corporate Democrats, and, you know, they are not necessarily, they say they're pro-union, but don't act like it, don't vote like that, you know, and so there's not enough of a push for union empowerment.
Totally agree. And that's something that we really need to change. And that's something that yes, totally 100%. We need to be electing leaders that are actually pro-union, that are actually pro-working class, that will implement policies that will change people's material conditions. But in order to get there, in order like for like the reason, going back to India, you know, the reason that they're able to have this level, like 250 million people out in the streets, like for something like this, is because they are organized through unions and on a people level
course.
through organizations. So we're not at that level here. So which is, it's a work in progress. It's really hard. So you can't just like, with the snap of the finger, like get that many people out on, or that proportionally a fifth of the country in the United States out on the streets. And it's because we don't have high union membership. It's because we're not organized in the same way. So I think that, we need to be both like it's like two hands, right? Like sort of inside outside. You need to be like electing leaders that have, that are on the right side with this issue. And then you also need to be organizing in your community, organizing in your workplace. If you can join a union, like I know it's a tough state, but like highly recommend it. Like, that's like, just, take more power back yourselves and ourselves.
A couple of things, like union power wasn't given, it was taken.
Exactly.
They fought hard, they bled for it, and then over time it was taken away from them. But this was not an easy fight. But I will say, the people that are anti-union, it is somewhat short-sighted to be anti-union, even from a boss's perspective. In a lot of countries, unions are given seats at the table. And like Germany, for instance, companies are required to have, I think, equal amount of seats for labor on the board of these companies. And what that does is, and this is why Germany does well in periods of economic downturn, especially the Great Recession, when things go bad, workers are more inclined to sacrifice when they feel ownership. It doesn't feel like they're being forced to, when they feel like they have a stake in what's going on, when they're participating in the upside. When there's downturn, they say, okay, yes, we have to make a sacrifice. But when they're constantly making a sacrifice and they're constantly not given any say over what's going on, it's a more combative relationship, especially, for instance, when GM went on strike or the UAW went on strike, and the first thing GM did was cut off their health insurance. So,
right.
It's a very adversarial relationship in this country, and it's a real problem, and it's something that needs to be highlighted and talked about a lot more.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that for small businesses, especially, that model would be beneficial. Obviously, for companies like Amazon, like they're keeping this status quo here in the country for a reason. They're profiting off of the fact that there is, like it's very easy to squash attempts to unionize or just, union power in general and like worker organizing. So obviously there's a benefit there.
Here's a quote that we could talk about another day. We need Chris Hale Democrats to win. That's good. That's one for another day. I mean,
I'm gonna have to put that one in my pocket.
That in my pocket. We could talk about that another time. Chris Hale, definitely would have been better than Desjardins. I will say that.
He's a very conservative Democrat. I don't even know if you can really call him a Democrat.
There were things that Chris did that I thought were smart. There were other things that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Story for another day. Maybe, Chris, happy to have you on here to talk about it.
Come on the show, Chris.
Speaking of Chris Hale, not really. That's not a fair transition. But here is another guy that recently moved to Tennessee. Chris did not. Chris grew up here. But this guy recently moved to Tennessee. Ben Shapiro got a hero's welcome from Governor Lee, other Republicans, for moving his Daily Wire operation here. And he's already making friends all over the place. This is what he had to say about Sarah Fuller, who was the first female to play in a Power 5 football game. For some reason, Ben Shapiro the need to go after.
And I'm not sure why that is like a major achievement for women. It seems like major achievements for women would generally be like a major achievement for a man, but a woman did it. It wouldn't be like she did a thing that a man did, but not as well as a man. And therefore it's a major achievement for a woman to do a thing that a man could do, but not nearly as well as a man would do it.
Like, I mean, this is not just illogical, but it's so infuriating that, like, of all the things going on in this country, this is the thing that this guy decided to focus on. And what he's essentially saying
can't help
is
himself.
He can't help himself. So he's saying that, like, breaking any barrier, unless breaking any barrier is not an achievement. This is basically what he's saying. Like, first black person to do a thing, first woman to do a thing, doesn't matter. Yeah. That's the logic here.
It always, like, this is what they're like, whenever they single this shit out, stuff that, like, no one else is upset about, except for like this, except for people in this corner of the right, whatever. Like, it's basically like, oh, we want, it's he was also upset. Let me just bring this in here also because it's in line with the same thing. He was upset about the movie with Kristen Stewart, like the lesbian Christmas movie, right? And it's like anything that and he's a Jewish guy, which is also just hilarious. He was saying that it ruins Christmas. Anyway, I'm like, it's just completely confusing to me. But he was like, it's anything that disrupts this like white patriarchal male centric thing,
Correct.
like world.
His
if there's
sense
anything
of
that disrupts
masculinity,
that,
right?
exactly. Like anything that disrupts that little perfect world for them, like, is upsetting. And it's like, well, why would anybody even think this is a big deal? Like, I just, I want to yell about it because it's something that just like pierces my perfect world. It's just, I don't know.
Right. On the one hand, I want to feel like, he's just doing this to troll people. But on the other hand, he does this so much. He's so focused
he gets a lot
on
of money.
masculinity and, this idea that he has of what it is to be a man. Like, if you're so concerned if you're so worried about that veneer of like manliness, and he did the same thing with, I guess one of the Jonas Brothers was on a cover in a dress, like, your real manliness is being secure enough to not worry about this shit.
Exactly.
And, to actually be, first of all, Sarah Fuller like stepped up because all the other kickers had COVID. She was doing what needed to be done, taking one for the team. The team is terrible. Like, why feel the need to be a contrarian about this? Like, black, man, take a chill pill, man. Like, you don't have to be a contrarian on every single thing. I know this is how you make your money, but like, you're in here in Tennessee, you're in Nashville, like, Nashvillians are not going to take well to that. And I don't even think most people throughout Tennessee would take well to that. Like, people appreciate something historic happening. There's a cordiality in the South. There's people wanting to be nice to each other and appreciate each other. Like, it's just nice, and forget politics. Like, this isn't even political. This is just mean spirited and ugly on the inside. And Ben Shapiro will show you that side of himself every single day you let him.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's
disgusting. And the other thing I want to say is people are giving us some grief about this on Facebook about even talking about him, but he lives in Tennessee now. He lives in Nashville now. Governor Lee is lifting him up. I do believe that he is our problem. And I think it's important that people in Tennessee and Nashville especially understand who this guy is. So, we won't do it all the time because otherwise we talk about nothing else. But on the occasion that he does do stuff like this, like he went after Elliot Page, basically saying that you can't be trans, essentially, anytime he does shit like this, we are going to talk about it. And you can be mad at us for that if you want. But like, if we didn't talk about anybody who says awful things in Tennessee, like, we wouldn't talk about any of these people. So like, this is what we're here to do, is holler about the nonsense. You can tune us out if you want to. You can even give us grief for it. But I do believe that it is our role to lift this stuff up and shame him for it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I totally agree with the balance aspect of it too. We couldn't possibly talk about it all the time, nor should we. But we need to be punching. He's in a position of power. This guy, like, there are a lot of people that listen to him. They're like, his show has a lot, has a huge following, unfortunately, and so you need to be like, he's with the people that he's funded by and the people that listen to him. He is definitely in a pretty big position of power, and at the Holler, and the fact that he lives here now too just adds another layer of, I think, accountability that we need to be leveling against him, like, as much as we can, because we want to be punching up here. This guy is like trying to maintain the world the way that it is, and there are too many injustices in the world the way that it is that need to be highlighted. And so I think that it's important to, as you said, like, highlight that and to combat this ridiculous narrative that comes out of his mouth every day, because he has so many people listening to him. So if there's a way to combat that narrative, I think that it's incumbent on people like us and media organizations that are more on the left to combat this really dangerous conservative narrative. And,
Ben's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. Like, this isn't one of those people where I feel like, oh, he just doesn't know any better. This guy knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
And, as says, victimization is the rule. Yeah. I mean, his whole thing is like the same thing as Tucker Carlson. Like, the white male is under attack, masculinity is under attack, whiteness is under attack, Christianity is under attack. All the things that are least vulnerable are what is really under attack, and all the things that are actually under attack are not really under attack. That's just a figment of everybody's imagination. And what they have they have no access, it seems, to empathy in themselves, because that to me is the difference between the parties. It's really what makes progressives who they are. It's an empathy scale. How much empathy do you have for people who aren't you? And Ben Shapiro has none. And that makes you selfish. It's the same thing that keeps you from wearing a mask in the midst of a pandemic. The lack of empathy is what we are battling all over the place, trying to make people understand that even if you're not dealing with something, people might be, in the same way that, look at the student debt cancellation issue. People say, oh, don't cancel student debt because I had to pay student debt. Well, that is not a reason. Like, you can be against canceling student debt for some reason. We'll disagree. Because you paid debt, you don't want anybody else to have a better situation. That would be standing in the way of progress on all things. It's like saying nobody should make more money because when I made minimum wage, I made $7 an hour, or I went to prison for weed, so everybody should go to prison for weed. It's not a real line of thinking. And, again, it all goes back to empathy. Everything goes back to empathy. And, I think that we need to lift up what this guy says so that when people see him out there in the street, they know what to talk to him about. And then I'd also like to encourage anybody in Nashville, if I'm using this guy, a camera in his face, talk to him and send it to us. We definitely want him to feel uncomfortable in his new surroundings.
Bird dog Ben Shapiro. That's like the moral of the story. Definitely. Because this guy is not going to change his mind anytime soon. So the best you can do is highlight his bullshit. And he just, I totally agree with what you were saying about empathy. And it's everything that he says is to try to keep things the way that they are. That's what it is. Or to regress. Like, it's either to keep things the way that they are and or regress to a more patriarchal, white-centric society.
Absolutely. All right. Well, speaking of regressing, we're done. Appreciate all you guys. Definitely make sure to be with us next week, Tuesday, but then also Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to have our TNDP Chairs Race forums. Love to have you guys join us for that. Send in any questions you have for them to answer. We're going to have 9 or 10 people telling us why they deserve to be the next Tennessee Democratic Party chair, something that I wish had happened last time. And I'm happy that we're going to be able to do it with Change Tennessee. And make sure to follow all the hollers. We appreciate it. And if you're a member of any groups and you want us to come talk about the holler there, please let us know. Thanks for joining us. As always, we'll see you next week.
Thanks.